It is my pleasure to welcome my Irish teammates. I've got Beibhinn Parsons, Connacht, Irish winger, and I've got Dorothy Wall, Munster, and Irish back row. Girls, we've been trying to have you on for a long time, and we finally got you on ahead of the Women's Six Nations. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eimear.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So excited to talk to you, and I'm sure our listeners will really enjoy this conversation. I suppose you two have been so lucky that you have started playing rugby from a really young age, completely different rugby journey to me. But we're going to just talk about your rugby journey and how you got to where you are now, two absolute rising stars in Irish women's rugby and the future of Irish women's rugby. Dorothy, you have three brothers. It has to have started somewhere there, your rugby experience.
Yeah, I suppose my three brothers always played down in Feathered, and my dad would have coached, and we'd be a very kind of rugby orientated family. And my mum, we would have always kind of rode horses and stuff. But during transition year, Polly Murphy down at the club was like, "Look, will you give the rugby a go?" Because I actually haven't said this before, but when I was like 5 or 6, I went down to one of the rugby sessions, but I actually got really nervous and scared and saw all the boys on the try line. And I actually was like, Dad, no, Dad couldn't force me to go down. So I left when I was 5 or 6, which I'm not very proud of, but I came back when I was 16 then and got into it, played for the school in Feathered, and that's where it all started for me, I guess.
Did it help having three brothers at home, you know, that you're able to play with and I suppose rugby tackle and use them as the punch bag?
Are you joking? They would not come out and pass with me if their lives depended on it. I'd be lucky to get them out. And they're all kind of into kicking and stuff, and like the toe poke is my speciality because they're all backs, I think. So they'd be out like place kicking and grubbers and whatnot, and it doesn't really suit me that well. So we'd be different, but sometimes Andrew, the youngest, will come out passing with me, but he generally goes inside fairly quickly.
all the skillful kind of things you're talking about there. Are you trying to say that you're not very skillful, Darrell?
Oh no, sure. I'd never say that, but I will. If you see me kicking a ball in a game, you know we're in massive trouble.
Note to self. Hopefully, we won't see that anytime soon. So you
Oh
started off
God,
at the
not at
age
all.
of 16 with you went and you played rugby at 16. So not late, I suppose, relatively young as well.
Yeah.
And tell us about your journey then. You started with Feathered Rugby Club and continued on to Munster. And tell us how you got to the Irish women's senior team.
Yeah, so I started in Feathered, played under 16 and under 18 with Feathered. We travelled to Cork, Limerick, was down in Rose Green and Feathered 2 nights a week. My mum would she's done serious mileage behind the wheel, like getting me to different training sessions. And then from club, there was Munster Underage, and we'd be down in Cork or Limerick twice a week, and I loved that. And we had a great kind of setup that year, and myself, Enya, and Emily were actually the back line, would you believe, for the Interpros, and we won our last year with Emily at 10, me on the wing, and Enya at centre. So that was a good year. And then from there, just kind of went into underage sevens, went to the Loughborough school games and like the youth Olympic qualifiers in Vichy. So from underage sevens, I was brought into the senior sevens program just after my leaving cert. So I've been in the sevens program for 3 years and got captain Ukraine in 2019, and then I was brought into 15s in late 2019 as well. So that's how I'm here today. It's been a lot of rugby, but I've enjoyed it all.
A lot of rugby. And I think the one thing about both yourself and Beibhinn is that you're so lucky. You've so much rugby played, and your 21st birthday is coming up on May the 4th, so you still have so many years ahead of you.
Put
so
it in the diary.
Absolutely. We'll have to celebrate that one. Bay, you weren't as scared of the boys, unlike Dorothy over here. You started off your rugby career playing with the boys.
Yeah, I suppose I did. I was under the impression that it was a mixed team. I found out fairly quickly it wasn't very mixed. I was the only girl, so they use that term very generously. But yeah, I think it was like under 10s or under 11s, and I loved it. I played a full season. We got to community games final. It was class, and then turned up the following season looking to play again, and was told, you can't play with the boys anymore. So that was me then at about 11, 12, hanging up the rugby boots and going back to Gaelic football. thinking that was the end of my rugby career. Little did I know.
And Dave, why do you think they told you you can't play anymore? Was it genuinely because you were running rings around the boys?
No, I wish that was the case, but I think you just get to a stage where like the boys start to outgrow you, and it just becomes a bit of a rule that you're not allowed to play anymore. But then a couple of years later, we set up a girls' team, and it was colossal. Like, we had about 40 odd girls at training, and it just took off in a huge way. And since then, I probably skipped a couple of steps, played with Connacht under 18s, and then luckily got onto the Irish Sevens. Met Grigsy there as a head coach, and he sort of fast tracked me onto the senior setup at 16. So it was not your typical textbook rugby pathway, but sure, we got there in the end.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't realise, like, Beibhinn was 16 years old playing her first game against the United States in Donnybrook. Like, it's a phenomenal achievement. But what's even more bizarre is that you weren't actually allowed to play interpros at senior level, but you played your first international senior game. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was weird. I was told I can't play senior club or I can't play senior province. I still haven't, played my first club match at senior level, so still waiting to tick that box. It was weird, and I was definitely out of my depth. So that, like, in that USA game, I'd never fully, grasped. I didn't have a smart rugby brain at that stage. So definitely not working up through the pathways showed a little bit, but I think the last few years of training under my belt, I've sort of grown into the position a bit more.
I wouldn't say that, Beibhinn. I think, if you're old enough, you're good enough, and I think you have proved that. Like, at the end of the day, it's not that long ago that you got your first cap, and I remember that very clearly. Your very first cap, your mum dropped you off into the lobby of the hotel, and she chatted to me and a few of the girls, the older girls who were there, and she just asked us to mind you. Like, you were going playing an international rugby game against the USA, and your mum was so worried for you.
Oh, I don't think she could, even still, I don't think she can make it through a full match without, like, putting her hands over her eyes. Like, the poor woman just can't stand rugby, but she makes it to all the matches anyway.
Yeah. How special was that first cap? I suppose for anyone, I think for me, coming from a Gaelic football background, the first cap ceremony is probably one of the most special special occasions in my rugby career. And even that jersey presentation the night before, we had Lynn Cantwell speaking to us, phenomenal rugby player who has done it all really with Irish women's rugby. And I remember she had a great speech, a really, really inspiring speech that day, and she presented us our jerseys. But how nervous were you ahead of that game?
Yeah, I remember Lynn's speech as well. I remember how much she talked about, the passion and her love for the Irish jersey and the green colour. I suppose at the time, I think I was so young and so naive that I didn't realise how big of a deal it was. And now, only in reflection and with COVID and having time to look back on things, I realised how sort of colossal that was, and that was the start of my journey. So I think if I was to get my first cap tomorrow, it would nearly be more nerve-wracking because it means so much more to me. But at the time, I think I was so overwhelmed with everything going on that I was just like zooming through the whole experience, not even able to take it in.
And is that why you were so overwhelmed that you managed to lose your jersey on your first cap night?
Eimear, I didn't think you'd do me like that.
Tell us a little bit about that story.
So I may or may not have allegedly lost my first cap jersey, and I was in bed the night before a match trying to get as much season as possible, and I wake up in a cold sweat. I literally cannot for the life of me remember where my jersey is. And note to self, don't ever ring the manager as your first port of call. Ring your players.
Rookie mistake.
Absolute rookie mistake. So I'm frantic, pacing up and down the hotel room. Bear in mind, I couldn't have a roommate because I was 16 and it was against child safety regulations or whatever.
16, so I don't want to get in your first cap.
And Yeah, so I ring Elaine Ryan at the time, she was our manager, and she's freaking out. I'm freaking out. Don't have a clue where my jersey is. She's trying to source another one. Like, as far as I know, it just evaporated into thin air until the next morning. Laura Feely taps me on the shoulder, hands me my jersey. Did you forget something, baby? And God, yeah. To tell you I didn't get much sleep that night is an understatement.
Yeah. So not only did you get your first cap at 16, you also had a sleepless night worrying about where your jersey was, but that's definitely a memorable moment. Dorothy, you got your first cap a whole year later in the next Six Nations. Your whole family were there. I remember seeing your gran, she was there, one of your main supporters, and we met her during Family Day last year at the Aon Family Day. You know, I played with you at Munster. I knew what you were capable of. I knew that you were absolutely ready to play rugby for Ireland. But you also have a very similar funny story about that day where you ended up texting your cousin Matt instead of Dr. Matt that day.
Eimear.
This is one of the funniest stories, and I think it's worth the airwaves.
Do I have to tell this story?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. So I actually can't believe you've done this to me. I had kind of a funny I had kind of a funny stomach on the day of the match, and I texted Matt, who I thought was the team doctor at the time, and I said, "Oh Matt, my stomach feels really funny. Is there anything I can take? Because you know it's match day and I don't want to be feeling sick for the game." And so I texted Matt, and he was like, "Oh, I can recommend like these alkaline things, or have you tried like some ice water or going for fresh air?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is really helpful, but can you actually give me the medication or whatever? Because, you know, I need it." And he kept like recommending stuff, and I was like, "Oh, can I get that off you?" And then Matt was like, "I'm actually in the States right now. Are you in America as well?" And I was like, "Wait, like I've made a big mistake here." Turns out it was my 25-year-old American cousin who I WhatsApped about my stomach issues on the day of my first cap, who gave me lots of lovely advice, but was not who I wanted to know about that.
He was really kind. He was really kind.
He's a great guy. Like, oh my God, to say I was mortified, and now I'm even more mortified because, oh my God. Anyway,
did you ever text Dr. Matt and actually get to the right Matt that time?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I got sorted, but he told me to come up to his room straight away. But sure, that would have been what would have made sense in the first place. But I wasn't really thinking straight. But
yeah, well, look,
we got over that hump, and
I think you were both proof that first caps are stressful, and that's absolutely proof to the pudding that, you know, it's not always plain sailing. But going back to the actual game, Dorothy, of your first cap, you were phenomenal when you came on. You hit everything that moved. How special was it for you and your family? And obviously your gran was there, but your dad was there, your mum was there, there was cousins. How special was it for them, for you, and for you to get your first cap?
Oh yeah, like probably one of the best days I've had. Like, it was great. Like, it was great to just get on the pitch, because when you're on the bench, it's like you're playing the match, but physically you're not, but mentally you're there. So I nearly exhausted myself in the first half. I was so into it. Like, I was actually a little bit drained. But then once I got on, kind of got into the flow of the game, really enjoyed it, and was like, right, okay. I kind of settled once I made the first hit, and that kind of worked for me there. And it was great, like, to have me there. And a load of my friends actually came up from UCD who wouldn't have really rugby brains. Like, when I was warming up on the sideline, they were screaming, like, and I hadn't even gone on. Like, I was just warming up, and they were screaming my name. And in fact, it was a little embarrassing, but I loved the support. But no, it was great. It was great to have everyone there.
Yeah, that's something that we'll definitely miss, you know, this year with the Six Nations. Obviously, you guys both played in November. What was it like without having crowds there, Bay?
Yeah, it was weird. I don't think you realize this, the extra 1% that like having the crowd there gives you. You know, even in your warm up and the buzz, and just knowing that the whole stadium, especially when it's on in Donnybrook, are behind you. You know, it makes you push that extra bit harder. It makes you run when your legs are dead. You know, that extra 1%. Like, you can still muster up the courage to win a match no matter what when you're wearing a green jersey, but having the support of a full crowd and a full stadium, you know, cheering for you and cheering for your country, it does give you that extra oomph.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I suppose all joking aside, it is a pleasure to play with the two of you. And, you know, how have you both found the jump from underage rugby to senior rugby? We'll go to you, Dara, first. And like, what advice would you give younger girls that want to make that jump from under 18s that have probably missed out on a year's worth of rugby in the last while with COVID? You know, they've missed out on that year of playing and training together. But what advice would you give them?
I think asking questions is huge, and being proactive in how you learn, and like getting all the advice from these really experienced players on the pitch. And then in terms of the team, like you have to be able to give them back the slagging they give you, because like there's only one way to earn that respect, and that's to be able to give it back and take it. And I've learned that the hard way, because I wouldn't say bullying is the term, but I've certainly got my fair share of slagging in the last while, but I've come to terms with it. So you have to give as good as you get, and just be proactive about improving and getting knowledge off older players, I think.
Yeah, and who would be the worst on the team for the slagging, Darrow?
Oh, it has to be the captain, Kira Griffin. Yeah,
and me.
Like I don't know how she's gotten away with it thus far. But look, I'm not complaining. But
Wait till she sees those pink boots at the weekend.
Oh God, I'm ready.
Ready for it.
You never know all about the pink boot slagging.
I actually saw the back three the last day, and they all were wearing pink boots, and I was like, what's the crack with everyone gone back to pink boots again? I thought that was so 2 years ago, but no, they're back on the pink boots then.
That was so 2 years ago.
Oh, Eimear! We never left the pink boots.
I'm clearly not trending at the moment without my pink boots. Beibhinn, what about you? What advice would you give girls that want to make that jump from underage up to senior level?
Yeah, I think a major thing is giving yourself that grace period to get used to senior rugby. Don't be too hard on yourself on those first few trainings back. Everyone's going to be rusty. Things are going to be new. Systems are going to be new. It's going to be that little percentage faster. Give yourself that grace period to get used to the game, settle in, get to know your teammates. And, from there on, you're just as good. If you've worked up the underage pathway, you've probably a lot of rugby under your belt anyway. So you're probably thereabouts with your teammates. Age is just a number. I think you're more than well capable of making that jump. So jump in the deep end, but also give yourself that grace period to get used to it.
Yeah, what was your first impression of everyone when you came onto the squad as a 16-year-old? Like, it's mental that you were a 16-year-old, then you had to go play the Welsh game and then go straight into your mocks. Like, what is the mindset of a 16-year-old jumping into a squad like us?
Yeah, it was a weird dynamic going from obviously secondary school where I'm being taught by, people your age, like half of you are teachers anyway, and then going in and you're my teammates. So it was a weird dynamic, and it was a weird shift at the start. I remember one time Rugby Players Ireland came in and they were giving a talk about all the services that they offer, and I was there trying to scribble down my maths homework, and they were talking about pension advice, and I was just like, what in the world am I doing here? What is going on? Pension advice. I haven't even done fifth year exams. But no, obviously I grew into it, and now I love it. I take the slagging as much as I give it. But that first year was definitely a weird dynamic, and I was still finding my feet. And at 16 you're not always sure of yourself, and then going into a well-established squad, it can be a bit difficult. But I'm glad I've had the years under my belt now. I can take the slagging.
Yeah, you've slotted in seamlessly. Darrow, when you joined the squad, what players really helped you along the way, or what coaches or what people in general helped you along the way for advice, or who would you go to for advice if you weren't really sure?
I suppose, as well as being a bully, Junior has definitely helped me a lot. She kind of, I get a lot of slagging, but there's a lot of useful things she tells me too. And I think, to be honest, anyone in the forward pack, Hannah O'Connor is a wealth of knowledge and so skillful. Laura Feely's the same. There's loads of girls there who've just loads of experience that is just there for us to take, really. So Junior has been particularly helpful, but there's lots of Just forwards wise, obviously the backs are so knowledgeable as well. But for me, those would be the standouts, I think.
Yeah, thanks for that there. I suppose looking ahead to this year's Six Nations, we face Wales next Saturday in Cardiff Arms Park at 5 p.m. It's on RTE as well, so it's very exciting. Dorothy, it's been so long. How excited are you to get started?
Oh, I'm buzzing. Can't wait. I am. It's kind of the only thing on my mind. Like, I'm just really excited to play. And I think that's I think that's kind of how we all feel. Like, we just want to be able to play a match and get going, get the whole campaign going and get in the swing of things, really.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel like we're Jack in the Box, you know, when you wind it up, and we've had about 20 camps under our belt and we're just going to explode.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And whatever team takes the park next Saturday week on the 10th, you know, I think everyone is ready at this stage. And I think there's such competition in the squad that I don't think we've ever been more ready. We're going to finish off with a quick fire round. So I'm going to ask you every second question, and I'm going to start with you, Dorothy. So we'll start with Dorothy, then move on to Beibhinn. And I mean quick fire round. So it's the first thing that comes to your mind. All right. Dorothy, one thing you would bring to a desert island?
My phone.
Beibhinn, one person you would take into battle with you?
Lindsay P.
I knew you were going to say that. She'll be delighted.
It's probably me.
Dorothy, how many times did it take you to pass your driving test?
I've yet to convert that. I haven't passed it.
I thought you had passed it.
No! It was the most disappointing thing ever. I got about 8 grade 3s. The driving instructor was swearing at me by the end of it. It was terrible.
Oh my God, I was convinced you passed it.
No, thanks for that.
Beibhinn, who has the best style on the team?
Best style. I'll say Emily.
Dorothy, who's the biggest joker on the team?
Hannah O'Connor.
Beibhinn, what is your cheat meal?
Scrum deadlies.
Absolutely. And Dorothy, most importantly, when is your lip gloss tutorial coming out?
This is a joke. This has just been an absolute slating of me. Soon. It's on my YouTube channel too, soon.
Oh my God. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know the background on that, Perfect. We had a Zoom call pretty recently. And what, did you think your camera was off?
They went into the COVID regulations and it was like a PowerPoint in front of me, so I couldn't see faces, so I forgot that people could see me. But yeah, she put on lip gloss because it was just there in front of me.
She got absolutely caught rotten. There's plenty of videos doing the rounds, I think, of Dorothy's lip gloss application.
The worst thing was, though, the next training, Griggsy said it to me in the warm-up. He was like, "Oh, nice lip gloss, Dora." I was like, "Oh, thank you."
No, there's nothing
I
worse.
was so low at that point. Oh God.
You probably got it in the players group and then you didn't think management knew about it, so there's nothing worse.
Oh no, I thought, okay, maybe I've gotten away with it. Then Griggsy says this to me, head coach. I was like, oh, class.
Girls, thank you so much for coming on today. It has been one of the most enjoyable chats I've had. I hope that everyone really enjoys listening to both Dorothy Wall and Beibhinn Parsons, who hopefully will be ripping it up in this year's Women's Six Nations. And our first game starts Saturday week, the 10th, against Wales in Cardiff Arms Park at 5 p.m. So make sure that you tune in on RTE.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe. Game changed.